Good evening, everyone. This is Gary Bennett. Welcome to our special live YouTube broadcast tonight on Wednesday, February 16th. And we're going to be talking about our bookstore example in the book Objective-C for Absolute Beginners in Chapter 9. So we'll be going through that code tonight. And those of you that are attending live, I'll be happy to take your questions at the end of the recording. And this will be posted on my YouTube channel later on this evening, and those of you that are listening to it on the YouTube channel are welcome to subscribe, and you'll always get notified when the new videos are uploaded. And then of course, if you'd like to take the classes, you can always go to my website at excelme.com. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Also, as a reminder, those of you that are attending, I will not be doing this class next Wednesday night. Normally I do this every Wednesday night, but on February 23rd, I will be doing a special 2-hour session for my students instead of the normal 1 hour, going through Objective-C topics and questions that they might have for that particular course. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our bookstore example. I'll go ahead and run the application just to kind of remind you what it does in case you haven't looked at it. It will go ahead and take 2 books and add it to our bookstore. Pretty simple, it looks like. Well, what we have, let's go ahead. Looks like we have 2 classes here, a book class and a bookstore class. So just like you'd expect in a bookstore has a bunch of books in it. So we're going to have an object that contains our book. We'll go ahead and look at the interface, or our interface file, .h file. And you can see here that, of course, book, our class book, its parent class is NSObject, and it has 3 instance variables that are of type string: title, author, and description. And we have one method, init with title, which takes 3 parameters: the title, the author, and description. And then what we also have here is the getters and setters set, so we don't have to code them. That's for title, author, description. Again, the signatures for your property and synthesize need to be exactly the same. So that's why you see this here. So that way we have access outside of our class to set these instance variables and to get the information out of these instance variables. And that's done with the property, and then on the .m file, here we're now on the book.m, looking at book.m, and we have the synthesize. You have to do those 2 steps in order to be able to do that. All right, so we have one method that is defined here in our .h file, and that is init with title. Init with title here takes the 3 parameters, and what it's doing is it is going to go ahead and assign what was passed into it when we call init with title, and it will go ahead and assign it to title, author, description, our instance variables. Now, we didn't do the property synthesize to be able to do this. Remember, we're accessing these inside of our class, so we didn't need to do the getters and setters. We could just do it directly. But later on here, you're going to see where we're going to be accessing those 3 instance variables outside of our class, outside of our object. All right, and then of course we call superinit. That allows us to go ahead and make sure that NSObject's init is called so that its parent class, so that both book and its parent NSObject can be properly initialized. And sometimes you'll see this, we'll do a self. We could have done self equal and then making sure that self is not equal to nil. You'll see that a lot as well. Okay, just different forms of programming. So anyway, that's the way that should be set. We'll just go ahead and return self, and we are good there. So that is our .m file and .h file for our book class. Now let's go ahead and look at our bookstore class. Well, our bookstore class, it has an import because we're going to use a book. So we're going to put books inside the bookstore. All right, so we need to know about the book class, so we import that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to inherit from NSObject, and we have one instance variable. And that instance variable is my bookstore, And of course, we've done our non-atomic retain to do the properties and synthesize for the getters and setter for this instance variable. And then we have 4 methods for our bookstore. We want to be able to print the book, we want to initialize our class, we want to add a book, and we want to remove a book. All right, and they both take 1 parameter each. The parameter that it takes to add a book is our object book. Okay, so we're going to take in a object book and add it to our bookstore. All right, and let's go ahead now and look at our bookstore.m file, our interface file. I'm sorry, implementation file. And we've gone ahead and completed the getter and setter. We're going to have an init, which will initialize our object. And we're also then going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and allocate the memory for my bookstore for our NSMutableDictionary. Okay, so that instance variable, and you'll see self.bookstore. Sometimes you'll see that as well. That's how I normally code it. And then we're going to go ahead and have define how addBook works. addBook takes in a book and adds it to our dictionary. Okay, so we're going to get the key. This is why we need to have the getters and setters, because we're accessing title outside of, and we're also accessing new book outside. I'm sorry, in this case it's just title outside of our class. So that's why we had to do the getters and setters for that in our book class. And then to remove a book, we pass in a string for the name of the title. It's going to look it up in the dictionary and remove it if it exists. And then we have some fast enumeration going on here for print inventory, which will go ahead and print all the books in our bookstore object, which is a mutable array. So it will go and pull out the key for the book, and then go ahead and we'll go ahead and take in the key. It will pull out the key here for each book, look up that key in the bookstore to pull out the book object, and then print out its title, author, and description. All right, so let's go ahead and step through it now and look in our .m file. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'll set a breakpoint here. We're going to go ahead and initialize our bookstore first, run the app, and set a breakpoint. And you can see right now our pointer is nil, which means it hasn't been allocated, obviously, because we haven't called alloc init. We go ahead and call alloc init, and we get a good pointer memory location. We're going to set a title, which is a farewell to arms. And then we're going to add that, that book. We're now going to go ahead and make our book object. All right, we're going to instantiate our book, which is going to be new book, is going to be the variable. It hasn't been allocated yet. We'll go ahead and do that here, which we'll call the initWithTitle method that we defined and described in our book object. And we added that book. We have that object and everything set for it. Now we're going to add that book to the bookstore. And I can step into that real quick. So we're now going to add a farewell to arms to our dictionary, our mutable dictionary. It's added. We're going to release it because we always want to make sure that we release everything that we allocate, because in Objective-C on a Mac, we have automatic garbage cleanup. But if we were doing iPhone development, we don't. So we have to release all of our memory. So I'm going to assume that you're learning to develop for iPhone, iPad applications, and we don't have automatic garbage collection. So we have to use releases to release all the memory that we allocated. And now we're going to do the same thing for the next book. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we'll step into this one. We're going to pass in our variables here, new title, author, and our description. Set those to our instance variables so we have them. We're going to add the book to the bookstore. And so now we have 2 books in the bookstore. All right. So let's go ahead and print them out. Let's go ahead and step into this. And now we have fast enumeration going on here, which means that we'll go ahead and loop through this for as many items as there are in the bookstore. We're going to pull out the key, put the key in the key for the first object into key, which is going to be the title of our book. And then now we're going to look up that key and get our object out and put it into book. So we now have the book, which means now we have access to the book's title, description, and author. Print that out. There's another item there, so we'll go through that. And you can see that the key for the next one is The Hobbit. And that's all the items that are in our array. And let's go ahead and see what we printed out. Actually, all the items in our dictionary. Sorry, I got my data structure wrong, and I want to make sure I clarify that. And there is the output for this exercise in Chapter 9. Hope you found it useful and helpful, those of you that are going through the book. And if you have any questions, feel free to post on the forum or drop me an email at gary@excelme.com, and I'd be happy to try to help you out anytime. And for those of you that are attending live, I'll go ahead and take questions here in just a second about Chapter 9 or any other questions that you might have on Objective-C or iPhone development. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks from today.